Hi, I'm the Reverend Naomi King, and I wanted to bring you a little message today about cultivating Santosha. Santosha is one of the niyamas in yogic practice, and it is an observance, an ethical observance. And it means, roughly translated from the Sanskrit, as contentment. Well, how do we practice contentment in these really trying times when we have so much grief and so much fear and so much anxiety? The grief, the fear, and the anxiety are real. And there are very good reasons for all of those. So what do we do with these ethical observances to practice contentment? Does it mean that we should just turn away from all of that stuff and say, no, I'm going to clamp it all down, and that isn't happening, or I can't feel any of those feelings? No. We have to practice being gentle and compassionate with ourselves and letting all those feelings come up because they're real and there are good reasons for them. But Santosha is a practice of cultivation, that compassion for ourselves and that sense of contentment is that moment of recognizing that while things might not be really well or perfectly well, that there might be enough well to have a momentary feeling of ease, a break, a respite from the worry and the fear and the grief, a place where we can settle. I know I've been practicing this myself a lot lately, and that's part of why I wanted to bring this message of it isn't about being content with a situation that is horrible. No, that's not. We're not talking about accepting things as they are and calling those good. That's not it. It's not like, it is what it is and it's all good. That's not true. Right now, there's a lot that's bad going on. And there has been a lot that's bad going on for a lot of us. There are many people who don't have any extra resources in which to respond to this pandemic. And yet, we still have this capacity to focus on what is good enough. It might be good enough that I have some fresh water to drink, and I can focus on drinking that and saying, yeah, this is good. This is Santosha. It's maybe not what I would have at this time of the day if I had my freedom to go out wherever I wanted and to be able to visit my favorite coffee spot, but I can't do that right now. So then how do I work with what I can do? I have this beautiful water that I can drink instead. So we've evolved to really be focused on the traumatic stuff. Why? Because you're more likely to survive when you do that. we are going to survive knowing when things are bad and wrong. And so our systems naturally tend to get highly agitated fairly easily. And that's why we have spiritual practices. Almost all the world's spiritual practices are regulating and relaxing the parasympathetic nervous system. And they help us come back and find the spaciousness and the graciousness that can be even in times of turmoil and trouble. So right now, I invite you to sit back, lengthen as you breathe in through your spine so that your thoracic cavity is getting longer, as long as you can make it. And if you have diaphragmatic control, you can inhale using your diaphragm, so that's going to expand outward. Hold it for a moment, and gently and slowly exhale. When we breathe in and breathe out very slowly, one of the things that we're doing is essentially cradling or rocking this vagus nerve, that is the one that's telling us that all kinds of stuff is wrong. So as we cradle our own selves here with our breath, knowing we're not alone, every breath in, we're breathing with the Spirit. Every breath out, we're participating in the all that's in all. So we breathe in and rock ourselves and relax. breathe in that cradle. Keep breathing. And as you're doing this breathing and feeling this cradling that's happening, consider, what are a few things, maybe only 3, that are okay enough to call to your attention? Maybe it's that you have access to water that you can drink. Maybe it's that right now your breathing is okay. Maybe it's this chance to connect and practice spiritually with thousands of other people right now. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean you're not practicing, and they're not practicing. Just because they can't see you either, and they're still practicing. So we take a moment and keep breathing. Name those things that are okay enough. They don't have to be perfect. They're just okay enough to find this little ground of contentment, of Santosha. And maybe as your attention comes back around you, if you've had your eyes closed, you might take a look around and see if there's 3 or 5 or 7 things around you for which you can also have a sense of contentment. And gather those up. Sometimes you might be a list maker like I am, and you want to write it down. Sometimes I just recite those things in my heart. Yeah. There's my heart beating very steadily. Oh, that too can be a source of my contentment. So what I'm doing is creating, through this spiritual practice with the breath, with pranayama, and beginning the first part of the yogic 3-part breath. And as I expand into the second part, so just in the diaphragm and the lung, and then the ribs expand, and then up all the way into underneath the collarbones, we'll expand all the way to the thoracic cavity and then contract it as much as each of us can, because everybody's lungs are different and everybody's muscle capacity is different. It is long, slow breath. That's Dirgha Pranayama, the yogic 3-part breath. What I'm doing with that is I'm creating some moments to counteract all the fear and anger and worry and grief that we're experiencing right now. And if you're experiencing lots of minutes of that every day, then I encourage you to at least try to meet with half of that amount of time in some kind of spiritual, relaxing practice that cradles your vagus nerve and brings you back to a sense of peace and well-being. What we don't want to lose in this time of difficulty is that well-being is possible. We need to have something to hold on to and a hope encouraged every single day for us that, yes, eventually this well-being is going to move from these 3 things or these 5 things or these 7 things and this amount of time into this many more things and this amount of time and this many more things and this amount of time, until eventually life returns to something that we can recognize as being acceptable, as being something that we really want to celebrate. So you might be listening to the sound of the bird right now, calling, and that might create a little moment of acceptance and of contentment. Hold on to it and take care of yourself and others, knowing that this pandemic will also pass. And you and each and all of us are part of carrying through it. You're not alone. With every breath, the Spirit is with you. And with each breath, all of us are with you. May you find blessing in this day, no matter what else it brings.